So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. It doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. Billy Stewart with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
Be calling things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser. You want to know who else is going to exit the NFC North as a loser? Jordan Love. Man, did the Lions kick him in the teeth last Thursday, and it was an exciting game to watch, and we're here doing our first ever quarterly report on the Detroit Lions. It's been a fantastic season so far. Everyone buckle up because it's going to be a hell of a ride through 17 games. And I have a feeling these Detroit Lions are going to surprise us in a few big ways, and they already have. So we're here. We're going to wrap up the first quarter. We're going to talk about the first games. It's not going to be a long show. We're going to kind of discuss what we already know. And the power rankings that came out today is kind of first on the agenda, and what everyone is saying. What are all the media, circuses around this country saying about the Detroit Lions? Are they finally giving us any sort of credit? Have we earned anything yet? I think if you were Dan Campbell, I think he would say we have as a team. The Lions have earned everything that they've gotten so far, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. So first and foremost, Lions power rankings. The entire NFL power rankings came out today. There was a few teams on there that I was a bit surprised dropped where they did, or even, were ranked where they were ranked. So, the Lions so far through this first quarter have played a pretty solid schedule, pretty tough schedule. And I'm going to go through the scheduled opponent power rankings for the first four opponents that the Lions have faced, and tell you guys why this really matters and how is it going to shape up the rest of the season. So on NFL.com, the Lions scheduled opponents to the first four games are ranked: Chiefs number 2, Seattle number 9, Falcons 21, Packers 14. And this is as of today. And it really blew my mind, that the Packers were still ranked as a top 15 team. Who on earth would have the Packers a top 15 team, especially over the Falcons? So that one I'm not in a big agreement with. I think that the Packers are maybe, a 20, but not a top 15. Fox has the Chiefs as the number 5 team, Seattle number 8, Falcons 15, Packers 16. ESPN has the Chiefs as number 4, Seattle at 10, Falcons at 22, Packers at 14. Bleacher Report had the Chiefs at 4, Seattle at 16, Falcons at 22, Go Pack Go at 15. Overall opponent average that the Lions have faced so far this season is 12.25. That's a pretty good first quarter. The Lions, unfortunately, have received a lot of bad press for so many years. It seems like it's really hard to jump up these power rankings, even though they're playing as one of the best teams in the NFL. PFF might be the only true ranking so far for a couple of these teams. But they had the Chiefs at number 1, which I don't agree with. Seattle at 11, which I did agree with. The Falcons at 28. I really didn't agree with that one. And the Packers at 13. But overall, when you look at everything overall, Lions have faced a top 12 opponent for the entire season so far from an average perspective. So let's jump into the Chiefs. It's important really not to read into too much, of this stuff, especially it's the first game of the season, right? You're beginning the season. One victory does not guarantee a Super Bowl. One loss doesn't mean the season is lost for good. But for a Detroit Lions team that hasn't won a playoff game, hasn't been to a playoff game, at least since 1991 is the last time they won one, right? Going into Arrowhead Stadium and knocking off the number 1 ranked and defending Super Bowl champions was a very big deal. It was a very big deal for Lions fans. It was a very big deal for the NFL, just to see if this Lions team was for real. Did they end the season and begin the season the same way? And they answered the call. Just having the opportunity to face the reigning Super Bowl champions on opening day of the NFL season was a huge opportunity in and of itself. But to walk away with a win, and a huge statement win at that, was a phenomenal test, in my opinion, a phenomenal test of strength, fortitude, and planning on the Lions' behalf. It was a phenomenal test of strength, fortitude, and planning on the Lions' behalf. I'm going to say that twice. To go into Arrowhead and find a win. They created that win. It spoke to the coaching staff and their ability to plan, prepare, and execute that plan. With the team that, they were confident in. They fielded this team. They've grown this team from the beginning since 2021. They've cultivated this team. And now they're finally starting to see the fruits of all their labor. They made big plays when they needed them. They showed up in moments that, the same old Lions would not have. And this is not the same old Lions. I'm sorry, some of you old fans out there that, are still clinging to the Lions are going to blow it. It's not going to happen. And I think we've seen enough to prove that. The curse, been gone. I think ever since Dan Campbell took foot on Ford Field as a head coach, that curse disappeared. But by all accounts, the Chiefs are ranked anywhere between the 1st and the 5th best team right now in the NFL. Most sites have them ranked around 4th. But any way you slice it, that's a damn good football team. And probably the hardest place to win is Arrowhead in the entire NFL. They have won roughly 26 out of 33 home games since 2019. And I don't care that the Chiefs were down Kelsey or Jones, that the Lions were not fully healthy either. That's just how the game rolls. This is the NFL. And if a Hall of Fame quarterback named Kurt Warner can go from bagging groceries to winning a Super Bowl, well, any given Sunday, any team can win too. And that's what we're seeing in these Detroit Lions. They're ready. They're prepared. They're well coached. They've got some good mix of good veterans, a lot of young guys, but a good mix of some good veterans on this team. And it's shaping a whole new way forward. So, massive win to start the season versus the Chiefs. Quarter 1, game 1, locked up. Lions win. They move on to Seattle. Against Seattle. It's going to be a short one. But against Seattle, which should have been a win. We knew it up front that we were walking into what could have been a trap game, right? It's early in the season. You just don't know if it's a trap. But it should have been a win, especially against the team that, was facing so much adversity already. They were decimated on the offensive line. They were missing key contributors on their defense. The Lions should have walked away with a win, and they fell flat. But that's okay. And it's only okay because of where they are right now. If they would have lost the next game, we would have had problems. Seattle was ranked anywhere between 8 and 16 when that game kicked off, and currently ranked a top 10 team in the NFL. So if you're going to lose a game in bad fashion like they did that day, that would have been the game to lose. It's still a tough opponent. All the area, local, international, national, media centers, they have Seattle ranked above the Lions. I don't know if that's true. I really don't think it's true. I mean, as a fan, I don't think it's true. All right. They walk out of Seattle with a loss. They move on to the Falcons. The redemption game is what it's been dubbed. It was the redemption game, and they needed it. They needed their second home game of the season to be a win. Hatter's House, how you doing, buddy? Glad you could drop into the stream tonight. Lions by a million versus the Panthers. Man, I hope so, but we'll dive into that one on Friday, and I don't think it's going to be by a million. I hope it is, because we owe them a big stomping for what they did to us last season. They crushed us. 320 yards on the ground, something like that. They crushed us. I think it was 500 and some odd, 570 yards of offense. Bad day. Really bad day. And then that was a game that we were supposed to win. But you know what? That's the difference. So, thanks for kind of throwing me off a little bit, because that's the difference right there. It's a game that you should have won, but this was not a team that was tested with fortitude yet. This was not a team that was ready, to go in and make the victory happen at all costs. And that's what we just saw against, well, not so much against the Packers because we totally dominated them, but even in the Falcons game, there was a time there where things got a little dicey, especially against the Chiefs game. That was a game where, the same old Lions lose that game. They weren't ready last season. They were close. They weren't ready. But now we're seeing another year has gone by. Another offseason has passed us. They've gotten smarter. They've gotten bigger, faster, right? They know the system better. And now we're starting to see where these close games, they're going to pull out. They're not going to lose it. They're going to pull out. They're going to play smarter. So anyway, Lions are 1-1. They're welcoming the Falcons into Ford Field. And against the Falcons, the Lions were expecting a much tougher game, at least on paper. They just walked all over, I think it was the Packers the week before, with like 211 yards on the ground. And after the loss to Seattle, the ground game was the biggest concern for the Lions. The Lions defense was able to finally crack their shell in this game and come away with 7 sacks, big time sacks. Pressured Ritter all day long and shut that entire offense down. A duo threat, running back system with Bijan Robinson was completely annihilated the entire day. Part of that was because of our new rookie defensive back, Brian Branch, was all up in his face all day long. Jack Campbell filling the gaps all day long. The defense played as a unit, and they played very well, like a well-oiled machine. The Lions offense seemed, to be somewhat flat during that Falcons game. Sure, they put up some points. They won the game. But it was not the offense's best game. And we still haven't seen the offense's best game this season. The Falcons defense really just didn't have much of an answer as the Lions walked away with the win. The Falcons were ranked anywhere between a top 15 team and all the way down to number 22 prior to that game. And currently, they are the latter. They are ranked between 22 and 25. So that's the first team that the Lions have faced that wasn't a top 10 team entering the game. And then the Lions head to the Packers, 2-1. Head to Lambeau. And at Lambeau Field, the Lions are taking on an interdivisional headache known as the Packers, of course. This was yet another statement game, a much-needed win, a chance for the Lions to go up 3-1 and take over the North. They go to Lambeau, and they don't just win. They completely dominated this game. From opening whistle to the last horn of the game, the Lions completely dominated both sides of the ball. It didn't seem very flashy at times, other than the defense when they were getting in on Love, what seemed almost every play. But they did their job. They went in, they did their job, they got out. The Lions were up 27-3 at the half. They officially won by 14 points, I think it was. And if you watch the game, you would have never felt that it was as close as that, ending score was. It was never really close. The Lions blew the doors off Green Bay and the field in the first half. Love looked, and this is my opinion, this is something that I noticed during the game. It was a couple of iconic pictures that I think are going to follow Love throughout his career. But he looked like a little kid that was pouting to his mom over the sucker that he didn't get at the store. Just scorned. Like lifeless, soulless, just laying there on the ground, sitting there on the bench, completely dismantled inside. He had no answers. He didn't know what to do. They destroyed him. They destroyed the offense and the defense. Both units. Love was sacked 5 times, picked twice. I thought to myself at one point, was this so bad that the NFL may have to call Campbell and say, hey, put your dogs to rest. You've done enough. This is embarrassing for the Packers. It's time to, just go win the game, but this is bad. They look terrible. I really thought that at one point. Jokingly, of course, because that would never happen. But the refs tried. They tried for a minute. They tried to help. They allowed the Packers to get on the board a little bit. A couple of scores in the third quarter, the 0-0 pass play in the third quarter, end of the third quarter. But anyway, it brought them within 10 points. But just as big cats do, what do they like to do when they get their prey? They catch something out in the field or whatever. They toy with it. They push it around and they toy with it and throw it around until they're ready to finally finish it off. And that's what the Lions did. They finished off this game with a 14-play drive ending in Montgomery's third TD, who also, by the way, finished with 121 yards on the ground. His first win over a Green Bay team. And then the very next offensive series for the Packers, the Lions defense came in and intercepted Love 8 plays later, sealed the deal, which allowed the Lions to then chew the clock, which essentially, like I said, it sealed the win. The Packers were ranked and still ranked in the top 15 prior to that game and even today, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know how. They haven't done anything. They barely even played with their top offensive pieces. They're clearly not a good football team. And we know the truth, don't we? We saw it. These big name media sources, they just can't put the Packers where they belong because it's bad for business. The Packers are great for NFL business. Let's just be honest here. The Falcons are a better team than the Packers. I'm going to say that again. The Falcons are a better team than the Packers. I don't care about records. I don't care about stats. They are a better team. They were a tougher team. That's not saying very much. At least right now. And again, it's early. It's the first quarter. When we look at the entirety of the first quarter, right? Who the Lions have faced, the different types of adversity faced in each game, battling injuries by the bunches, losing multiple offensive linemen and or multiple defensive players, including our number 1 safety, CJ Gardner-Johnson, in the second game. Which, give a handout to CJ Gardner for playing through that entire game with what ended up being a torn pectoral muscle, which he suffered down in the end zone near my seats in the first series against Seattle. The Lions have really not played an entire game at full strength besides the Chiefs game. But even then, they were without one of their coveted off-season acquisitions, which was Emmanuel Mosley. We have yet to see him, grace the field yet, but he's going to suit up here pretty soon. The Lions also chose not to suit up Isaiah Buggs. I thought that was a big mistake, and I think we've seen why. And Ifeatu Melifonwu was also battling a hamstring issue during that game. So it's not like the Lions, were or are or have been fully healthy in every single game, but they're as healthy as they've been all season right now. We have seen that by bringing Buggs back and putting him in the rotation, what it has done to the game, what it has done for this Lions defense. I mean, I don't think it's any surprise to you. The Lions have had 2 of their best games on defense with Buggs in the game. 0 sacks through 2 games, albeit 1 right, to in the Seattle game to Alex Anzalone on that busted play by Geno Smith, but nothing by the defensive line through the first 2 games. And then you put Buggs in and you get 12 sacks in 2 games. He's a producer. And you guys have probably heard me talk about it time and time again. There is what I call a hive defense that's working in Detroit. When you see a lot of hats around the play, that's a hive. When your team learns to work together as a unit, that's a hive. They're working as worker bees, right? They're all working together, the same goal, take care of the queen. That's what a hive defense does. They produce for each other. And when Buggs is in there, he's part of that hive. He doesn't care if he gets a sack. He doesn't care if he gets the tackle. He wants to be able to put the guys around him in position to do those things. And some players are just role players like that. That's what their job is. James Houston is a producer when it comes to getting to the quarterback. His job is to get to the quarterback. Bug's job is to allow him to get free to get to the quarterback, right? To hold up those 2 gaps on the right side or the left side, wherever Houston's lined up. Let him go and get the production, but I will do the producing for you to get free. And Buggs has been instrumental at that ever since he's been in Detroit. So is Kaminsky. He's another producer. He's not a stat guy, right? Stat whore, as they call him. He's a producer. He's in there to make plays so other guys can make plays. For instance, Brian Branch's first hit on Beasley. One of my favorite plays so far of the season in preseason. Kaminsky got lateral, jammed Beasley so Branch could get up and make the hit. It was that extra second that Kaminsky allowed Beasley to hang back behind the line that allowed Branch to get over and to get into position and make a perfectly clean hit. That's a producer. Sorry, I went off track there for a second, but as you can tell, we get a little bit passionate about the Detroit Lions, especially when they're having a good season. So Buggs is back in. Buggs is producing at a high level. The Lions defense is producing at its best clip since 2014, if not better. The Lions have faced, so far, this is what it means anyway, the Lions have faced the 7th toughest schedule throughout the first quarter of play. The Lions should be 4-0, but they're resting at 3-1 right now. First place in the NFC North. And even that is not even close. You tell me what team in the NFC North is going to contend with the Detroit Lions for the rest of the season. As long as the Lions can win one more game, it's not even close in the NFC North. The Bears are trash. The Vikings are trash. The Packers, I think they're a little bit miscombobulated, man. They just don't know what's going on. Love doesn't have a clue. But the Detroit Lions have had a huge test throughout this first quarter. A test that you don't usually see for a team that has really done nothing to come off, 9-8 last season to walk into one of the hardest schedules in the league. 8 games against former playoff teams from the season before. And it just so happens that some of those teams are really falling flat on their face right now. Seattle hasn't. They're still a good team. Chiefs haven't. They're a great team. But the Vikings, they've fallen flat on their face, and that's good for the Detroit Lions because they're probably going to sweep them. I do feel like that is the toughest opponent for the Lions in this NFC North division right now. But come trade deadline, if they're not even close, I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins is on his way out and the Vikings are looking to retool. So at this point, this huge test in the first quarter, the Lions have won 2 major away games on prime time. And I'm sure everybody has seen the post that I put up and this stat that is apparently more meaningful than anyone really thought. But you just have to remember, it's just a stat that somebody found, right? It doesn't mean anything just yet. And that's that only 5 teams have won 2 away primetime games in the month of September. And those 5 teams have gone on to make it to the Super Bowl. 2 of them won it. The Lions are the 6th team to have done that this season. So to accomplish this type of a feat, does that mean that our Super Bowl chances are hanging in the balance right now, that there's actually a shot that the Lions could get there? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that the Lions have a legit shot right now to make the Super Bowl? Are we nuts for even thinking that? I mean, as a Lions fan, we wanted this for so many years. We just want a playoff. But a Super Bowl, I mean, that would be incredible. Everybody here would probably mortgage their house to go. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. They would go. Any way, shape, or form. That would be the largest tailgate I think the NFL has ever seen in history of the NFL. It would be huge. It would be massive. There would people be crawling out of the woodwork from everywhere. But needless to say, this is not the same old Lions. The same old Lions lost these games. They definitely didn't win the big away games. Hardly ever did they win an away game, much less even a home game, which is now a trend that started last season. It started before the last Green Bay game, the final game of the season. But that was a game that, again, that the Lions would usually lose. And a game that, again, usually is meaningless for the Detroit Lions in December. And it wasn't. It wasn't until the Seattle game was over. But they still had things to play for in December, and that was incredible. The first quarter has shown Lions fans all over the world and large media outlets that have been bashing and dogging these Lions for decades that this team is for real. They're not joking. They were just flexed in the Buccaneers game in 2 weeks to a later game. The NFL is noticing, for once, this Detroit Lions team is real. They said that they had a plan in 2021. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have stuck to that plan. I think they're about a half a season early right now. Like I said last year, they're about a half a season early, meaning I expected a 4-year turnaround, 4 seasons. The 4th season, they were going to go gangbusters. And I feel like they're a half a season early on that. I didn't think that they would be playing, really meaningful ball until about halfway through this season. But a lot's changed, and a lot changed quickly. And it all started last season at around week 9. And they have not looked back ever since. When is the last time the Lions have played, on back-to-back short week games and actually won both? I can't remember a time. I'm going to have to look it up, and find that stat. But I can't remember in recent history when the Lions won on a Sunday and then won on a Thursday away. They usually get screwed. Play on a Sunday, play on a Thanksgiving Day, then turn around and play again a week later. 3 games in 14 days. How many times have we seen that on the schedule? This is a different team. The NFL knows it. They see it. I think they're actually helping us a little bit with some of these scheduling things. Like I said, they usually get screwed and they have to travel all over the place. Play on short window games in a row in some of the worst conditions you can possibly play in, in away stadiums like Green Bay in December, late in the season. And not to mention when the team's all banged up, having, a bye week in week 7 or week 8, way too early, when all the great teams, all the teams that are making it deep in the playoffs are having bye weeks later on in week 12 and week 13, where they can actually get some meaningful rest out of some of their players. But none of that matters anymore. It's not relevant any longer, and we're not going to hold on to it at all. We're going to let it go. This team is going to be able to take the BS that the NFL hands us with a smile, right? We're going to go and handle our business. This team is for real. Dan Campbell is way beyond anything that we have ever witnessed or expected. We couldn't have expected a better first quarter. If we are 4-0 right now, man, I think that people would be out of their minds. but I think in our hearts we believe that we should have been. But we're not. We're 3-1. So we're going to go earn it. We're going to go work for it. We're going to make sure that we get that win back. Look, they have a lot of work to do. I'm not saying that everything is, cookies and gumdrops or whatever you want to call it. They got a lot of work to do. They have to win at least 9 more games to have a shot at the playoffs and wrap up the NFC North. The good news is moving forward after this first quarter, the rest of the Lions' remaining schedule is now slotted as a top 25 schedule, which is not great. So the teams are ranked 25th on average out of 32 teams. And again, I should probably say this schedule started out with 8 former playoff teams from last season. So things are shaping up to work out for Detroit for once. They just have to go in and do their job. They have to go in and win the game. They have to play to their strengths like they have been since week 3. The Lions are in good shape, though, and they've been blessed to have this 10-day stretch for the second time this season. They had a 10-day stretch after the opening day game, and now they're having a 10-day stretch after this 4th game on Thursday night. A move that, the NFL scheduling department has never afforded the Lions. We've never had breaks like this. We've never had these little mini buys to get our team healthy. And that's critical right now, especially with the way that, the entire management has gone to bat for these players to bring in, the top level athletic trainers and medical staff and everybody else to get their players, ahead of the curve, ahead of the game. They're getting injuries, looked at and diagnosed and treated much quicker than they did before. And they've got some really unique ways that they're treating things. The Lions are getting healthier. That's all that matters right now. Emmanuel Moseley should be making his first on-field appearance in the Honolulu Blue this weekend against the Panthers in a limited role, right? He's definitely going to be on a pitch count. I can't imagine that he's going to take a lot of snaps away from Jerry Jacobs the way that Jerry Jacobs has finally sprung to life and is playing pretty well. But I can bet your bottom dollar that if Jerry Jacobs starts having some bad reps, that Emmanuel Moseley is going to get a shot. And let's just hope that, between the two of them, they both stay healthy through the rest of the season and they can work together in trading reps and staying healthy during the game so that, you bring in fresh legs in to shut the opponent down. Jerry Jacobs is the number 1 targeted cornerback right now on the Lions. Nobody wants to throw at Cam Sutton. So if Emmanuel Moseley is better than Jerry Jacobs and we bring him in and he's able to elevate that side of the field, where are they going to throw to? You going to throw at Brian Branch? You going to throw at Tracy Walker? I wouldn't. So the Lions are shaping up to finally make offenses one-dimensional. And if you can't beat us on the ground, you're not going to beat us through the air. And that's going to really bode well for some exciting play throughout the rest of the season. Taylor Decker's getting better, right? I mean, he got banged up a little bit, early in the season. And he's having an opportunity on this 10-day rest to get better. He didn't suffer any additional injuries in the last game against the Packers. And so that was great. We walked in and walked out pretty healthy. Brian Branch suffered, a couple of injuries during the game, albeit it ended up being an ankle. And it wasn't as bad. X-rays were negative. So Brian Branch should be back on the field. But again, with the opportunity of having Emmanuel Moseley back, that also might take some pressure off of Branch to either come back and suit up for this game and take an additional rest, right? Get ready for the bigger game against the Buccaneers. But that's yet to be seen. We'll go through some of the up-to-date practice information today here at the end. It should be noted, too, that David Montgomery had a great game and appeared unfazed by the thigh bruise on Thursday. He, too, is getting healthier, right? He's having an additional 10 days to get ready. And the biggest key is they're all going to have Jameson Williams back. Finally, we're going to get to see what this kid can do. And yes, he's also going to be on a pitch count and limited. But his decoy status, in my opinion, is going to be, going on a big show on Sunday. I feel like he's vital to this. His top speed threat in this game, the Lions don't have right now. They don't have it or they're not willing to utilize it because they've had plenty of opportunities to beat teams deep, with an Antoine Green or a Khalif Raymond. Even Josh Reynolds not slow. Khalif Raymond's quick. But having somebody like Jameson Williams, who, if you don't know this, I'll tell you, he's faster after 30 yards than he is at, 10 yards. The longer he runs, the faster he gets. And that's the difference between short area quickness and long speed. He has long speed and he has some short burst. Gibbs is short area quickness, 0 to 40 yards. He's going to beat Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams has 0 area quickness and burst, but he's not going to get to full speed until about yard 50. And yard 50 takes about, 2.5 seconds or more for Jared Goff to really be able to develop the play and get the ball out and get it downfield. Maybe 3 seconds, I guess. So it's not comparable to the 40-yard dash times. I'm talking pocket time. Because then you got launch time on the ball, and it's a whole formula. It gets really convoluted really quick. So Jameson Williams is back. So we're ending the first quarter at 3-1. Jameson Williams is back. Suspension lifted. The team is very healthy. Vaitai, I don't have any updates on him right at the moment, but from what I've heard, he's progressing well. But the Lions' offensive line has been great so far. The thing I'd like to go through is kind of read a little bit about what each site is saying about the Lions, or at least a couple that I pulled out. Kind of hear what the national media is saying, with respect to the ranking that they gave or they leveraged to the Lions at this point in the season. And then we'll kind of move on to the latest injury report and practice report and wrap it up for tonight. And I have some stuff on positional group rankings, the grades for the rookies. So here we go. NFL.com. They said, man, it's a new era in Motown. The Lions smashed the Packers at Lambeau Field on last Thursday. Then they found out Friday that their 2022 first rounder, Jameson Williams, would be returning early from suspension. They officially became divisional favorites even before the Williams news, and they're potentially adding exactly what they need in the speedy wide receiver. But Williams also returns with much to prove, given his lofty draft status, limited production, and nagging penchant for being unavailable. One thing to remember is he suffered a hamstring injury in August, played only one preseason game, and couldn't communicate with the team during the first 3 weeks of his suspension. So expectations must be adjusted. And I believe in that too. Wholeheartedly, your expectations should be very low on Jameson Williams right now. But now the runaway for him to be reacclimated is longer and begins right when Detroit embarks on a reasonable slice of the schedule. So even with competitive road games at Tampa and Baltimore on tap this month, expect him to get going within a few weeks. I would expect a lot of decoy out of him to start his comeback. NFL.com has the Lions as the seventh best team in the NFL right now. They had the Bears at 32, the Vikings at 25, and the Packers at 14. ESPN, they had Lions ranked 8th. And they say our biggest issue is rushing the passer. I find that funny. But yet at the same time, there's a big difference between sacks and rushing the passer. So getting sacks, and even getting them in volume doesn't mean that you're able to rush the passer and win those pass rushing downs consistently. And that's what we've seen. ESPN had this to say. The pass rush has certainly improved from the past 2 weeks, but the Lions pass rush win rate is 32.3% through 4 games, which ranks 29th in the league, according to ESPN Analytics. However, Detroit has shown some improvement over the past 2 games. The Lions defense has registered 12 of its 13 sacks on the season, with second-year edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson totaling 3.5 in that span. The Lions pass rush appears to be figuring it out and will look to build its momentum against Carolina this week. Could you imagine if the Lions walk in and get another 5? If they get another 5 sacks on a rookie quarterback and demolish his season before it even gets started, that would be incredible. Fox Sports had the Lions as the 9th highest rated team in the NFL. All they really wanted to say was that the offense is getting Jameson Williams back from suspension. This team looks every bit like an NFC contender. Notice how they didn't say just North, NFC. Rookie report cards. Here we go next on the rookies. Man, we've had some big delights out of our rookies this season, as we did last season. But that happened late in the season, right? Halfway through the season. Rodrigo got off to a great start last season, and Aiden Hutchinson kind of ran away with it the last 7 weeks or so of the season. So we'll start with Jahmyr Gibbs. My report card on the guys, I'm giving him a B-. I wanted to give him a C+, but I don't think it's his fault, and I'll just state that. I'm giving him a B- only because he takes care of the football. I initially gave him a C+ because he's been underutilized and not as effective as we had anticipated or expected. And this may be a scheme thing, right? It could be Ben Johnson waiting to kind of let loose on the playbook until J-Mo's back, and then the playbook can be opened up a little bit more. So for that reason, I went with a B- because I don't think it's all Gibbs' fault. Gibbs is yet to really emerge as more than a complementary piece in this rushing offense. Through 4 games, he has accumulated 39 carries for 179 yards. The good news is he's doing that at 4.6 yards a clip. He was given the bulk load of the carries versus the Falcons, where more often than not, his between the tackle attempts were stopped in their tracks. And Gibbs is yet to emerge as a true focal point in the Lions passing game. Outside of week 2 against the Seahawks, he has caught no more than 4 balls and has amassed no more than 18 receiving yards in a single week, which is paltry. I mean, it's pretty pathetic. We expected Gibbs to come out the box, catching 20, 30, 40-yard bombs. It just hasn't happened. So it's very pathetic for a guy, with so much speed, so much talent, sure hands, great ball catcher. But complimentary is the key here. It really is. It's the key word here. None of these guys have to be a true number 1. They can all play a role and get the job done just the same. And getting the W is the only thing that matters. Dan Campbell just said it the other day. I don't need Jameson Williams to come in and be a number 1 or a number 2 or a number 3. I need him to come in and have a role and be in that role and do well in his role. That's all they're looking for out of J-Mo. Be a role player. I'd say the offense is working fine right now. Don't throw the guy in it to mess it up. Right? Work him in. Let him do what he does well. If the ball goes his way, he better catch it. It's that simple. I don't think they're going to really upset the apple cart a whole lot here. Jack Campbell's my next guy. I really wanted to give him a better grade. But again, it's kind of a Gibbs situation. He's been heavily underutilized to start his NFL career. It doesn't make up for the fact that he's experienced, his fair share of struggles through his first 4 games. He struggled in coverage. PFF has him graded at 45.6, which is terrible. And he's still getting, kind of acclimated to coming off the edge and rushing the passer, which is a new role for him. He hasn't played Sam. He's always been a middle linebacker. And throughout all of camp, he was at middle linebacker. James Houston goes down. They move him over to Sam. But I think there's been an identifiable difference in this defense. When Jack Campbell moved to Sam and you got Alex Anzalone back in the middle, what happened? This defense went gangbusters. They started racking up all sorts of sacks. So I'd leave it alone. Put him at Sam. Leave him there. He'll catch on eventually. I mean, he did look solid against the run. Graded out at 74.2 per PFF. He's proven that he's versatile, right? He's taken snaps on the edge the last couple of weeks. But it's a new position. Before his efforts, right? Last Thursday against the Packers, 3 total tackles, 1 for loss. He did receive his lowest overall grade of not only the, all the Lions defenders, but the entire team, 46.9 against the Packers. At the very least, though, it's a good sign, right? It's a good sign that Aaron Glenn, he trusts him. He trusts Jack Campbell enough to give him reps at multiple linebacker spots. He'll get it. He may just take a little bit to catch on. Next rookie is Sam Laporta. Well, Sam Laporta has undeniably been Detroit's best rookie performer this far. There's another rookie on the defensive side that I would say is, really making his name well known too, and that's Brian Branch. But through 4 games, Sam Laporta has been one of Jared Goff's go-to targets. He has 22 receptions, 242 yards, and a TD. The most catches and receiving yards ever by an NFL tight end through 4 career games. Let me say that again. The most catches and receiving yards ever by an NFL tight end through the first 4 career games. How is it that the Lions rookies keep setting these records? Not to really jump off topic, but this clearly shows that Brad Holmes is doing everything right. And his team of scouts are incredible at their jobs. But on top of being the NFL's most productive first-year tight end through the first four games of the first quarter of the 2023 campaign, Laporta has also been one of the league's best overall players at the position. In fact, going into Sunday's game, week 4, he led all tight ends in receiving yards. It's not just his ability as a pass catcher that we see. He's been an excellent blocker, dominant at times blocking. And when needed, he's made very critical plays upfield. We just play against the Packers in that second series that set up Amon-Ra, 35-yard play. And I'm going to say it again. I've said it in the last 2 shows. You watch Sam Laporta. When he's catching the ball, he's got this way of catching, corralling. Through the process of the catch, he's already upfield. It is the most smooth transition. I mean, it's almost like juggling. He's going from the left to the right, and he's gone. Almost looks like Tai Chi out there on the field. The guy just moves. All right, so the man of the hour is Brian Branch, top rookie on this in this class. Sam Laporta, I graded an A, by the way. Jack Campbell, I had at a C+. Jahmyr Gibbs, I had at a B-. But, I'd give Sam Laporta an A+, but you just can't. I mean, he's a rookie. He's definitely going to get better. So he doesn't deserve an A+ just yet. I don't think anyone ever gets an A+, honestly. Brian Branch, I got him at an A-, but through 4 games, he's consistently shown, a knack for swarming around the ball, finishing in a violent fashion, making the plays, sacrificing his body to make the play, doing whatever he has to do to get the job done, which typically means, though, that he's in position. He's not really out of position on anything that I've seen so far, but I haven't watched every bit of tape yet either. He's accumulated 25 tackles so far, 3 for loss to go along with 4 passes defensed and an interception for a touchdown on the biggest stage in the game, opening night in Arrowhead versus the Super Bowl champs. Wow. That's incredible, right? Rookie, DB, overlooked. The Packers give us their pick. We take Brian Branch. He comes in and he smokes you all game long, and he's been doing it for 4 straight games. Probably the best DB in the class, the best safety, best nickel, whatever he's going to end up being. Right now, he's clearly the best. Witherspoon's doing pretty well too, but he's kind of just getting in the game. Look, man, the Packers messed up big time. And now we see why Brad Holmes was not afraid to deal all of those picks to the Packers just to get Branch. He's a game changer. This guy is going to be one of the best safeties in the game for the next 10 seasons or more, as long as he stays healthy. Through 4 games, again, he's consistently shown the ability to find the ball, to make the play. His play has earned him a 79.6 overall grade from Pro Football Focus as a rookie, including an 89-point run defense grade and an 80.3 coverage grade. Those are pretty darn good numbers. He's honestly been the linchpin in the backfield, or in the back end of this Lions defense. And he has truly, truly been as good as advertised. And then some. He's already shown, the tenacity to really mix it up, the ferociousness to go in and get dirty, the guts to play hurt and fight for his guys, and the intelligence to play at a very high level. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get crucified on this one. But when I think about the best DBs to play the game ever, even some recently, where Branch, in my opinion, is already headed in that conversation. If he stays doing what he's doing now and he only gets better and stays healthy, he could be one of the best ever to do it in the future. It's going to be a while, but he could be. He has the skills to do it. But I'm seeing a direct comparison here between him and a Brandon Boykin. Philadelphia Eagles. One of the best to do it. Or smaller guy, scrappy guy, Tyrann Mathieu. If Branch can even become 85% of what those guys were, he will have a very long and fruitful career. Antoine Green is up next. Brian Branch finished with an A-. Probably should have been a B+ just because, but A-. A- for Brian Branch. Antoine Green, we haven't seen enough of. Look, this kid's got big potential, big play potential. He was the final pick in the 2023 draft. He hasn't received, much of a chance yet to do anything. He's suited up in 3 games so far. He's logged just 1 catch on 1 target for 2 yards. He's currently sitting behind, obviously Amon-Ra, Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, but now he's back, and Marvin Jones. But with that said, I don't envision, him not contributing much the rest of the way. I think that he will have some contributions to the team, even with Jameson Williams coming back. Quite honestly, unless a major injury happens, he may not get a lot of playing time. But this recluse behavior of Marvin Jones has me wanting to see Green in before Jones. Why keep putting Jones on the field if he's not going to do anything? Put Green in. Give him an opportunity. Throw the ball to him. See what happens. At least give him even splits, reps between the two of them. He's got big play potential. Red zone threat. It's written all over him. 4.4 speed. He can do it. Antoine Green, I gave a C- just because we haven't seen anything yet. I don't think he's deserved of a D or anything lower. I feel like he's done the best with what he's been given. He hasn't had any negative plays, so we'll see where it goes. Colby Sorsdahl, gave him a C-. Look, I was impressed with this kid. I really was. He took his first snaps in the Atlanta game. He came in and played a position he hasn't played all season. And he ended up logging 36 snaps at right tackle in relief of when Matt Nelson went down and Dan Skipper went down. He fared pretty decently. In the emergency situation, he didn't permit a single sack. Can't say that for Nelson. He got knocked around a little bit. He got knocked on the ground a few times, but he never gave up a sack. Bud Dupree, who's no slouch, right, as a defensive tackle, generated a third quarter pressure on Goff. Big deal. You got one pressure, but no sack. Again, I couldn't say that about Matt Nelson or Dan Skipper or anybody else you put there. Colby did a great job. But just like the next guy I'm going to talk about, Broderick Martin, Sorsdahl doesn't appear to really be ready to, receive a healthy dose of reps, nor is he needed to at the moment with guys getting healthy. He still has a lot more, growing pains to work through, and it could take him the entirety of the season to really gain a firm grasp, especially if they're going to kick him over to right tackle as the emergency guy. But playing on this offensive line, and playing in the professional ranks, it's going to take him a little bit of time. It's not an easy position to learn. Yet I still gave him, a tremendous amount of credit for standing tough and in the Atlanta game and doing what he had to do to help us win. So small sample size, haven't seen enough. He's definitely going to have the skills to be a career backup, but I think he has more than that. So C- for Colby. And the last guy, Broderick Martin, we haven't seen him. He hasn't played. So he gets an incomplete grade because I got nothing on the guy other than training camp and preseason. All right, practice report on a Tuesday. What do we got? All right, did not practice. Amon-Ra St. Brown during the portion of practice open to public. St. Brown is off to the side working with trainers. He was moving quite well, cutting and running about 70-80% speed. It's unclear what he may be dealing with. It could be the foot injury he was dealing with. Who knows? He's been wearing that plate in his shoe. He did suffer a toe injury earlier in the season, but he never really missed any significant time. So this is probably just cautionary. Try to get him back and healthy for the Carolina game. Then the big one, Brian Branch. Like I said, he came out of the game twice against the Packers. He was dealing with an ankle injury. His availability is still unknown. Dan Campbell did say yesterday, though, that it's early in the week. They really don't know on anybody yet. So it is what it is at this point. Branch was not seen at practice today. So he's probably getting treatment. He could be, in with the trainers. He could be at a facility doing hyperbaric or something. They have a lot of unique ways to treat these injuries now. Fullback, Jason Kabinda. I remember the Lions did sign, was it Daryl Daniels the day before or the day of the game. Kabinda missed last week with a knee injury, but he may be trending in the right direction. He was working with the trainers on the side today. He wasn't quite moving around like St. Brown was, but it was still a positive note. Jameson Williams, the big one for the day, the real big one. Now that he's, back, his suspension is lifted, he's finally on the field for the first time since his hamstring injury in mid-August there. It was clear, though, to everybody that his injury was a thing of the past. He was moving around just fine. He was practicing with the team. They just don't know, if he does play or if he doesn't play this week. But they do know that if they put him in, he's on a pitch count. They can't go in and put him through 60 plays. It's just not going to happen. You're going to wear the kid out. You're going to create another injury. So if he got in for a third, I'd be surprised. I'd say he probably gets in 12 to 13 snaps in the first game. That would be my guess. Look, he's really not needed right now. He's just needed to go be a decoy. All you need him in is on 2 or 3 plays to get a couple of touchdowns. That's it. Halapouliuti Vaitai. We know that he suffered his knee injury in week 2. He missed the last 2 games. He's possibly on track to return to the starting lineup this week. But Glasgow's played pretty well. He's got a 73.4 grade over the last 2 games. So no rush, right? No need to rush back. Another big one is Edge Julian Okwara. He's designated to return from IR, meaning that he can stay on IR, but he can now practice for the next 3 weeks. And at any point over that time, he can be taken off of IR and placed on the 53-man roster. Based upon the ramp up with the trainers over the past few weeks, he's likely healthy enough to play, but we'll see if Detroit actually activates him with Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes filling in his role at the Sam linebacker position. And I wouldn't say he's been doing it well. He's just kind of been a stopgap. Kirby Joseph, he missed the last 2 games with a hip injury, suffered against the Seattle Seahawks. Today was his first practice since that injury. And I guess barring any setback, he's probably going to make his return this week. And he'll be pushing Ifeatu Melifonwu to the bench if that happens. We'll see. Ifeatu had a hell of a game last week. Like, best game I've ever seen him play. But haven't we always seen that out of him? He comes in, he plays great, and then he disappears the rest of the season. So I hope they keep Ifeatu working. It doesn't hurt to get some reps for these guys. I don't want to see Ifeatu fall backwards. He really played well. Against the Packers. Notables at practice, Taylor Decker. He aggravated his ankle injury on Thursday last week, but he was out there with the team today, and he did practice. So no real setback that's serious at this point. Cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, what everybody wants to know. Is he going to make it? Is he going to suit up? Question, and the answer is he's ready to make his debut. He was rehabbing from his ACL injury. He had that little setback. He had a hammy. We had the procedure. Then he had a hammy. But now all indications are, per Dan Campbell, he's certainly somebody that we feel like, all right, let's get a look at him this week. He feels like the time is right, and he'll get a little bit. Jerry Jacobs will still certainly would take the load, but I think the plan is to get E-Man worked in. To sum up Dan Campbellisms, because he does a lot of broken quotes, he's going to get a look at Emmanuel Mosley. Jacobs is going to get the lion's share of the snaps. They're going to work him in slow. Again, pitch count. They're not going to overload him. No reason to bring him back and rush him in and have another injury. So that's really it for today. The last guy that I was worried about was Dorsey. Dorsey really came onto the scene this season, was playing well. And all indications pointing to the fact that he may be eligible next week to come off of IR and that he's progressing in the right way. So our entire team is really starting to get healthy right now. With this long 10-day period in between that, like I said earlier, it really gives you an opportunity to get healthy. And if they keep kind of rotating these guys in, just look at the guys that we're bringing back. These are top-tier players that we're missing, and we're still winning games without them. So you bring some of these guys back, and like I said, the sky's the limit for this team. They're going to keep plugging in good guys. They're going to keep working it the way that they're working it, and they're going to keep winning games. And that's all that matters. They're just going to keep winning games. With whoever they have on this team, they're ready to go. Next man up. One Pride style. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed the little first quarter breakdown tonight. It's a little different. It's a little slow, talking about some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, from a fan's perspective, I didn't expect this. I did not expect the Lions were actually going to play as well as they're playing. I did not expect the defense to come on as strong as it did. I expected a top 15 or a top 20 defense. I take that back. I expected a top 15 defense about midway through the season. Andy said that, he was expecting a top 10 defense. And Andy's looking like he's going to be right. That we're going to have a top 10 defense come playoffs, if not before. And a little side note on Andy, he's been doing well The last update that I had from him is he was downgraded from ICU, and he will be making his way to a regular room and then back home. So they did catch everything quite early, and he really appreciates, everybody's thoughts, prayers, well wishes, and everything you sent to him, on the group pages and everywhere else. So we really appreciate you guys stepping up for Andy and reaching out to him. That was super nice of everybody. So that's all we got for you tonight. We'll see you here on Friday. I might pop in throughout the week, but I'll see you on Friday. We're going to do the Carolina pregame show, and we're going to break it all down like we always do. This is going to be a big one for us. I don't think that there's a lot to break down in Carolina because it kind of sucked at everything so far, but that's where those trap games come from. Hopefully it's not this week, and we'll dive into it Friday. So anyway, like, share, subscribe. Please visit villainsquad.store. There's going to be some new designs going up for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're trying to organize a walk down Brush Street. We're going to try to get it in at the last home game of October and start raising awareness. Next year, we're going to have a much bigger event for it. But if anybody you know has suffered from breast cancer, would like to participate, or if you just want to come and show your support, please do. But we'll put some details up on the page and the group, and we'll be sending it around Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else. You can support us by buying a pink Detroit football shirt on villainsquad.store. Those will be up again tonight, and the proceeds are going to go towards this new foundation that we're trying to create. So you can help us out there. All right, everybody. I hope you all had a good night. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe, be healthy, and go One Pride. We'll see you all on Friday. Take care.
So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. Doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. Billy Stewart with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, CJ Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
Cohen, things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser.